Not just another podcast. We're just trying some things out today, but I will say what this platform, what this show is attempting to do is to cover politics with biodiversity and conservation as the prime focus. And the more I've thought about it, I think we also need to do a bit of media literacy and um, basic fact checking training. I think as we go through things. So, um, what what I plan to do in the upcoming shows is to run through oh a number of things. I plan to do is to approach guests who have a want to say humanist point of view, but also rigorous in the way they approach topics and arguments, that they are not just regurgitating talking points, because that's everywhere in the media now. What we need are people to extend arguments out and have a look at them from different standpoints. I did myself a bit of a favor yesterday, and I was watching a couple of controversial commentators, shall we say, certainly in the Australian context, and they had some really clever things to say about how easy it is to be. I was going to say manipulated, but I think manipulated is the wrong word. How easy it is to be misled about how thinking that you are voting for one thing and in one way, and something that we would generally think is positive, from my standpoint, where we would say, I really want a crossbench in Australian politics, and crossbench is in our parliamentary system, generally the people that the government needs to approach to get the votes to pass their legislation through the Senate, the upper house in our situation here. Many parliamentary democracies have the same uh, session. Oh, Alex. Hello, Alex. Thanks for popping in. Hey, Alex. Uh, let people know when they're watching on the replay where you're coming from, and uh, what I'll let folks know. Alex is in a uh, Twitter group. Um, what's it called? Climate crisis chat or something that has a regular get together. Unfortunately, it's at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning for my time, because I'm here in Wurundjeri country, the southeast of Australia. I'm based in Melbourne. Alex, I think you're in the here we go. Alex is on the Atlantic side of Massachusetts. Now, uh, tell me, Alex, is that close to Worcester, in where you are in Massachusetts? Because uh, one of my media idols, Sam Cedar, is from Worcester. So let me, for Alex's benefit, because I don't know how much Alex did or didn't catch. When I do these live streams, the idea is to be interactive and to tackle things that you think are important. And I want to use this live stream which will be as regular as I can make it. Every second Friday, I have to do class, and sometimes I have to go and do observations and lessons and stuff in class. But generally, for this whole election period coming up for Australia and Canada, Philippines, uh, I'm sure there's more that are coming up uh, in the next little while. I want to look at the media and PR environment in these countries and have a look at if biodiversity and conservation is getting any attention. And Alex, you might be interested in my focus. I'm not sure if you've uh, got any idea of what my take is. Uh, I kind of think that the publicity war or the publicity battle about climate change, I think, has been won. Uh, I think people, uh, I think people understand and let's put America to one side because your country is bonkers. You have a system where half of the eligible electorate don't participate. They just don't participate. So the other half that do participate, you have somewhere around 10 to 13% call themselves independents. And hello, Environmental Coffee House. I will get you up here. I'm glad you're here. Nice of you to come in and support me as well for this because it's very difficult when you start a new channel and nobody knows you and you. I don't want to be with this channel just talking to nobody all the time. So thank you. I appreciate you both being in here, especially when you're in evening time over there. When it's what is it now? It's just gone 10 a.m. here. So I was running half an hour late. I had to put my uh, I had to put the lorikeet back in the cage, and he wasn't interested. Um, so oh, great, Alex. Thank you for you shared the link. Thank you. Now, Alex, when you say that's Sandy, is that Environmental Coffee House? Do I have permission to refer to a name rather than a channel? Because I'm happy to do that, but it's good to promote the channel. Uh, Alex is agreeing with me here that yeah, we are bonkers. Okay, I'll, and don't get the impression that I'm insulting you because I know you guys are not the part of the bonkers set, but I'm on the other side of the world. I share many of your values, I think, or that had previously we'd had these shared values. Oh, they're coming in thick and fast. Greetings, everyone. Please pop into the chat where you're from, so you gives me an idea, and I can sort of focus the discussion there. And because this is our first uh, not just another podcast morning show for me. I'll be trying to do this every morning at about the same time uh, for for the foreseeable future, and I'll be preparing materials for us to go through. It's not like a class. Don't get that idea, and hopefully interviewing some really prominent and active people in the new media space um, so that I get challenged. Because some of my ideas might be a bit bonkers out there, but I especially want to talk about how difficult it is now to determine what is a good course of action and what are good causes or people to support. Um, so let me go back to why I think the US at the moment is possibly, potentially, the greatest asset that the rest of the world has for positive action in biodiversity. I got off the climate change track. I'll go back there shortly. But it's also, and I think this is more worrying, potentially the greatest problem, and that's because you've got uh, approximately 50% of your electorate is engaged, actually is involved in electoral politics. Between 10 and 13% is consistently calling themselves independent. And then you've got 45, between 43 and 45 lining up with either of the other political parties. But the other political parties are run by money. Well, they had been up until this period now. And the left wing, uh, and I'm struggling with calling something left wing in an American context, because what your politics recognise as extreme left wing here would be the moderate centre, and that's the same for many of the other Commonwealth and historically British parliamentary systems. Um, so they're not really useful labels. But the point being, you're so wedded to some concepts which are just mental. I think. Uh, uh, Sandy says, "Let's get this. It's okay. You don't have to chat a lot. I'm not. I'm not going to chat a lot. I'm exhausted. I've been working hard all day, and I'm having surgery early. What? You're having surgery? Good luck with that. Do we get to compare scars at some stage down the track? Bird Emergency, long time viewers know about my scar. I got a scar from here right down to the whizzer. It's a beauty. Um, all right. You've got this concept of freedom and freedom of speech, which seems bonkers to me because I don't think you're freer to say more things than I am. But there are actually consequences for telling in this country for telling lies and deliberately damaging mistruths. So saying things to deliberately damage people when they are not true and can be demonstrated to be not true are not things you are free to do. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure that under any definition of freedom to be able to uh, get the most attention and convince the most people of things that are objectively not true is actually free. But anyway. And you've also got a system where a majority in your parliament, your Congress, doesn't allow you to get anything done. You actually need to get, except for twice a year in the Senate on your reconciliation bills, you need 60 votes out of 100. Now, a couple of other places around the world have modelled their government on yours, and they're munted as well. They can't get stuff done. And so it's just crazy. So I don't know how you in the US are ever going to move towards the kind of environmental and biodiversity positive policies that the rest of the world might be heading towards. I should have put those, or I should have put all this down on paper. But your money in America, because you guys have got nearly all the money, apart from what the Russian oligarchs and the Chinese have got. I mean, American corporations and the people that control them and have all the money. Even the corporations that are based in Ireland and the British Virgin Islands and the Netherlands, and for tax purposes. They're all American companies and they're run by Americans. Uh, uh, Here we go, Alex. Uh, Alex's ancestors fought in our Revolutionary War. I, I'm one of those super patriotic Americans. And she also says, um, you're right, our politics have shifted far right. It's not a new thing, though, Alex. I mean, uh, apart from if it wasn't for FDR taking pretty radical action, your country was almost fascist in the 30s and almost didn't enter the Second World War. And I think Americans don't like to consider you talk about rights and human rights, and the left wing in America always talk about human rights, but you've got 800 military bases around the world, and your relationships with other countries are predatory, and your military cooperation with other countries. Just look at Australia. We've and New Zealand, Canada, most of the European countries, Britain, we've all bought into the benevolent America. I'll get back to biodiversity and stuff for a moment, but I just want to set the scene because it is uh, the first sort of show. To get to strengthen our relationships with America, we have to buy your military equipment, but we don't get to manage that equipment. We don't get to update that equipment. We don't get to service that equipment. American contractors do that. And what you see, as Trump has just done with Ukraine, they just pull out the staff that manage those systems. So now Ukraine can't update their systems, so they can't take advantage of they can't negate the jamming technology that the Russians are using, just simply because some technical operations are not being allowed uh, uh, to be involved. Uh, Refusing to share information with Five Eyes, with Canada, the Five Eyes information for Canada. So what's next? When Australia arcs up about the tariffs that we're about to get, do you stop cooperating with Australia, which then renders the ANZUS Treaty that we all proudly have been waving around about the shared values and special relationships for 50 years? Um, is ANZUS dead? Uh, we're sending you 380 odd $billion for submarines that we now don't think we're going to get, and that we cannot operate independently. That it's crazy. But 5 years ago, uh, 5 years ago, we would have never thought that the US is actually a threat to our security, but I think we do now. Uh, Alex, I hear the Empire talk every day. We're the dissidents here. Yeah, well, I don't expect that. I don't expect that anybody who isn't already kind of in my club uh, will be will be terribly interested in this channel. But I hope some people are as I move on to other topics. But I want people to be really clear when they find this channel uh, about what my standpoint is in this point of time. And it's interesting now. I've been watching some music review channels in on YouTube, and a whole lot of people in America seem to have just discovered Midnight Oil. Now, Midnight Oil in the uh, early '80s, mid '80s, '90s were singing songs about the imperial US empire and the cultural domination and whatnot. And basically, the US has culturally dominated the rest of the world, destroyed the creative arts all over the world, made our TV shit, made our movies rare and crap, made our music invisible and more shit. So I think Americans need to be pretty clear that the rest of the world at the moment fucking hates you. Europe fucking hates you. Germany and Australia, Tesla sales fell by over 75% in the last month for February compared to the February before. Not only are the Canadians won't be the only people booing your national anthem, and I don't know what you can do about it because I think you guys are stuffed now. The way your government has been systematically dismantled. I mean, just the way that the EPA regulations were taken away. Imagine making your population at large dumber by getting rid of the education department. I mean, that's the thing the Americans don't need is to be dumber. I know there's plenty of you who aren't dumb, but there's a massive body that is, in my view, really, really, really competent at discussing things, but most people don't know stuff, which makes the discussions, even though they sound good, and they're all very polite and civil, but they're dumb. They're dumb discussions. It's amazing. I mean, just watch Joe Rogan. Go and sample 3 or 4 episodes of Joe Rogan from the last 12 months, and then go and sample 3 or 4 episodes of Joe Rogan from 3 years ago, and you'll just see how progressively dumber stuff has gone. Anyway, in terms of biodiversity and conservation, it's inextricably linked to this move to the right, and the same interests are pushing the same kind of tactics all over the world. The no, I don't believe it's COVID brain. I mean, this is the thing. People want to say that the Trump thing is new. It's not new. The neocon takeover and desire to destroy the American government is 50 years old. George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, I mean, Reagan. It was Reagan's dream. And now all the moderates and the liberals go, oh, this would have never happened under Reagan. They started this project under Reagan. Anyway, what else, Sandy, have you got here? Kind of a doomer. I believe Americans are 65% ignoramuses. Yeah, I reckon your percentage is probably about right. I reckon 60, high 60s. Sandy, what else you got? No, I mean Joe Rogan. The way he's changed. He never seems like he's smart to me. Yeah, I mean, he's always been a dumbass, but he used to have guests on who actually knew their field. He would actually get experts on, but now he just gets protagonists on, and most of them are dumb. How does a former psychologist who's been deregistered in his country, Jordan Peterson, how does he become one of the most significant voices in the cultural right, in the media space, in in the US. It just I can't kind of understand it. Anyway, I want to go back to uh, the common threads and the real risk to biodiversity and conservation. I don't believe that climate change will suffer the same fate, action on climate change, because there's money to be made. Corporations are making money out of the shift to climate change, to climate change action, to adopting new technologies, to uh, owning the apparatus for cleaner uh, cleaner energy sources. But in Britain, the Conservative leader is now adopting the get Britain back on track. Get Britain back on track. The New Zealanders, the National Party that won their election uh, in the last, 6 months, 7 months maybe, they ran on getting New Zealand back on track. Uh, the Conservatives in Australia, their motto is get Australia back on track. I'm sure I can find other examples of it if I look around. Just trying to think. I have heard the Conservatives in Canada using the same phrase. I don't think they're actually running on that as a slogan, but they throw it into all the interviews. Get Canada back on track. Now, guess what? They're all advised by the same and uh, media and political strategists. It's the same bloody people who moved from the UK, the last UK election. Thankfully, the Conservatives got spanked there, but the Labor government there is just a Conservative government using red as their colour. Um, so we have to be aware of the kind of messaging and the kind of lies, the big lie tactic that we're going to get. And there's no money in biodiversity, but there is money in climate. And if we care about biodiversity and maintaining habitats and ecosystems, and we believe in the interconnectedness and the general health of everyone, the web of life, we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted and in a way bought off by thinking that people who are out there spruiking for climate action will, when it comes to the a vote in Parliament, whichever Parliament it is, whether it's a system like China where you've got delegates in a sort of closed system, or whether it's around the cabinet table in Australia or Canada or New Zealand, or if it's on the floor in the chamber of a parliament. Because we got a group in Australia that I I initially was a big supporter of, but I've changed my view because when they influenced the last election in Australia, I had been green pilled. I probably don't want to say green because I think the Greens are a better option here in Australia anyway. But I had been, I'll call it green pilled, because I thought that climate change action went hand in hand with preserving biodiversity. And I was naive in that view. Totally naive. Because in Australia we are having loads of climate action, but we are getting practically nothing done on preserving biodiversity. And just in the last week, our endangered species list was updated to include another 21 species. I'll actually go over that uh, on the bird emergency, possibly tomorrow. I'll just give a plug for the bird emergency too. The the thebirdemergency.com/YouTube. You can find the channel. 11:30 a.m., which would be a similar kind of time to about an hour later than now. On Thursday, we're talking about invasive species in the Alice Springs, Central Australian desert country, and how a weed that gets lots of attention because it's an agricultural weed. It's very bad for the farmers on those massive cattle stations, but it also chokes out the uh, the living spaces for mammals, lizards, reptiles, birds, insects, and it crowds out all the space for their food sources. So it's a massive problem. So if you're interested in that, do make sure you check out the bird emergency on Thursday. Anyway, let's get up. Alex, we're all on that same environmental page. The biodiversity crisis is probably the most complex environmental polycrisis. Yeah, I agree with you, Alex, and Sandy. Exactly. Uh, where where I get very narky, and I think I line up with uh, what Lyle was saying the other day, is that there's people with uh, massive platforms who continually conflate conservation with action on climate. Now, obviously, action on climate affects conservation, but habitat preservation is the most important uh, is the most important thing, I think. But at the same time, you have to maintain the conditions uh, for life, that range of conditions that life can exist. We need to maintain that. So of course we need action on climate change, but just doing action on climate change will not preserve species that are limited and linked to certain habitats that are disappearing, and those geographic spaces, if they're being put to other uses. So there's, there's a whole. I mean, it's a complex thing, and the media doesn't do it well. But I don't think people want to ruffle feathers, and it really annoys me. Uh, Sandy, keep talking, Grant. I'm really enjoying listening to you. Plus, you're calming me down. Oh, uh, did that come up? There we go. Well, I hope I'm calming you down. I get more riled up when I talk about those things, so uh, it's uh, it's a bit of a worry. Let's see, new people coming in. Uh, nice to see you all on YouTube. Hey, if you've just popped in on YouTube, uh, especially if you're someone who's been involved in bird emergency or habitat gardening streams, pop in the chat. Let me know where you're coming from, where you're at, and today it's just going to be sort of interactive along this line. Uh, Sandy saying again, I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have you as a guest on my channel. I started writing you an email the other day, actually, Sandy, to say let's do a collab because I think it makes perfect sense. So, that's another opportunity for this channel too. I will be reaching out to many people and attempting to do and to get lots of different points of view on the show. I'm not afraid to be challenged, um, and I think there might be some things that I'm completely wrong on because my training uh, is I've been a tax accountant, uh, so I'll just get some of my light reading, my favourite light reading. see that. The Australian Master Tax Guide, the top 100 tax Q&As, and the Australian Tax uh, Casebook. But before that, I qualified as a horticulturist. I went through Burnley Horticultural College at the University of Melbourne and did parks and gardens management. And my special subject is Australian native plants, and my real interest is habitat gardening and trying to help individuals. I'm not involved in policy. There's people working in all sorts of august bodies who are doing that kind of work, but I'm trying to get individuals with their acting with their own garden and in their own neighborhood to be proactive. Although after speaking to Lyle, I'm just wondering why any of us are bothering, but but we'll get there. Let's see, Sandy, I'm a little bit behind, so let's see. Here we go. I love that your other channel is Bird Emergency, and you're talking about ruffling people's feathers. Yeah, I started this channel because I was getting feedback, not from viewers, not from listeners of the original podcast, saying I was too political and I get too upset and I'm too sweary and ranty. Potential guests were not prepared to come on the show to talk about their research or stuff because they thought it would damage them to be involved in sharing their information. And that's kind of the problem I have with the space. I hate using that word. It's such a wanky word, but I guess it fits well enough here. Is that people are looking out for their own vested interests and not delivering messages that are not nice to hear. And they certainly don't drive engagement and money. They're not going to get you a sponsorship. They're not going to get you a new job with a private consulting company or something. And I think that's a bit of a problem. Sandy again. For someone who isn't going to chat much, you're doing a great job. Good, the more voices, the better. And I love small channels. I'm not going to limit my approaches to small channels, but I am, if I find people I like, I'm going to ask them to come on. And my hook is that we're going to talk about things, please, with a focus on the world other than America. Even though America is always going to be part of the discussion because it's so bloody big and it influences all the rest of us economically, militarily, culturally. But to slant all of my discussions towards conservation and biodiversity, climate, obviously, but all of these things, that's going to be the overarching roof of the show. But we're going to talk about political concepts, media literacy, and actions that we can take. Let's see. All right, Sandy used to be a human resource director in university research. We all get to where we are from somewhere. Yeah, I still do a show for a client that's about career development, HR, and stuff like that. I do a migration show as well. So yeah, I think it's good that we keep listening to normies, to the people who are not as passionate and invested emotionally in the issues that we have. I mean, I've been a bird nerd. I've been in love with birds since I can remember. Right? But um, but I can't see the point in just being happy with being a bird watcher as I watch species after species become functionally extinct. Um, yeah. Actually, I just sent an email off early this morning to the people who are trying to reanimate the thylacine, the Tasmanian devil. I want to get the leader of that project on the show, and I just want to ask him one simple question: where are the thylacines going to live? What's your idea? Once you let's say you manage to create 20 of your Frankenstein thylacines, because I haven't heard anybody ask that question. They all go, "Oh, amazing! Isn't the science, the technology amazing? Oh." Where are they going to live? In Australia Zoo? Is Bindi Irwin and Rob Irwin going to get them, or are they going into the predator-free zone that some of the other wildlife parks are promoting with celebrity money? Is it I mean, or are they going out into the wild to uh, not be of any economic benefit to anyone? Anything? Sandy again. I grow everything. All of your plants, I hope. Is that what you're saying? You grow everything? Um, Alex, yeah, there's interactive jam sessions, finding like-minded people. Lyle is a doomer supreme, but I think Lyle's got a very valid point. Ben C on Twitter and Blue Sky as well. You know, you want doom threads, uh, but it's backed by evidence. The evidence is there, but nobody is talking about it, which is what drives me mad. And then I keep seeing all these positive things about, oh, isn't it great that uh, these tiny little things have happened. Meanwhile, the reefs around the world are dying. The uh, people can't fish. There's no fish left for subsistence communities anymore because they've been overfished. But now they can't repopulate because the temperature zones in the ocean are shifting, and people are going, "Oh well, isn't it? We're doing some good stuff." Um, Sandy, okay, you got me chatty. I'm very tired though. I don't know. I relate to you. Well, apparently that is my skill as a streamer, that I am able to elicit discussion and I'm prepared to take it on. And why is gaming streaming so popular when you could be doing this? I don't get it. Alex also says we're sick of talking about the USA. Unfortunately, you're going to have to get really, really, really sick of it, because every day it's getting worse, and the rest of the world is just waking up to how potentially problematic it is. And I mean, just an Australian thing. And now that I know that this platform works and how I can use it, I was a bit uh, afraid that it was going to crash like all the other things I've been using lately that have been terrible. I'll be able to bring videos in and clips and stuff, but um, Trump put out a, a bleat at Truth Social yesterday, um, saying that the former Prime Minister of Australia, who Trump gave exemptions from the tariffs that he brought in on steel and aluminium. And please, can you learn how to say that word? It's aluminium. At the time, he had held the press conference and said he was a really great leader, blah, blah, blah. And today he said, or last night, he's weak, he's stupid, blah, blah, blah. And the fact that the media just, even here in Australia, no one said, this guy's mental. He took exactly the other tack. But now that he doesn't have to deal with him in the same room, he carries on like a pork chop, and he is a bloody orange pork chop. Our One Living World. Now, One Living World, welcome. I don't know, I haven't seen you around, I don't think. So, the biggest problem that animals have is that they are near starvation due to reduction in and toxifying of the general habitat. They are constantly bumping into limits to growth. Well, that's partly true. It depends on species, obviously. If I mean, you probably look at native insects in many parts of the world where they just cannot uh, get whether it be seeds or leaves or flowers that they're adapted to because they've been replaced by crops, monocultures. Here in Australia, we've got a problem where even though we've got a native forest industry that only exists from subsidies and it employs a minuscule amount of people, but it's got this hold on the political parties because the they're connected to the bigger construction industry. You know, everyone wants windowsills, everyone wants decking, everyone wants uh, beautiful native timbers for their kitchen benches. Wanker, 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 wankology shit. So we're still logging. Uh, eh, Basically, they call it selective logging, but they basically take everything and they clean up the forest by taking out old trees that are no good for wood production that have all the hollows in them. So our large gliding possums, the greater glider, all the small possums, the honey glider, the sugar glider, the honey possums, uh, our largest owl, the powerful owl, the migratory swift parrot, the orange-bellied parrot, uh, dozens and dozens of hollow-dependent species. They're disappearing, but it's not because they can't find enough to eat. They can't find anywhere to nest, and and people are doing their best to replace um, the hollows. But I spoke with a guy called Mick Callan, who's developed this fantastic replacement nesting box system. You should go back and find that. Actually, I might replay those episodes on here. The amount of hollows that are required in Australia is staggering. And at 250 or $300 an artificial hollow, plus the ongoing maintenance and monitoring costs involved, it's staggering. It makes no sense to try and do the uh, to intervene in that kind of way. We should just leave the trees standing. Any economic argument about not pursuing conservation falls flat every time. But when we look at different ecosystems, I mean, the oceans is a totally different thing. Oh, what did I see the other day? People going, "Oh, isn't it amazing what we could do to combat methane from cows? Is what we could do is we could feed them seaweed." So then everyone gets excited about it and thinking, "Oh yeah, we could create this industry to by by harvesting seaweed to feed the cows to reduce the methane." Where does the fucking seaweed come from? Seaweed is the forests of the ocean. It that the ecosystem, the marine ecosystem hangs around seaweed and algae. But no, why don't we just go out and harvest the kelp forests or whatever? The conversation, the sophistication of these discussions hasn't moved on because there's a dollar to be made, and it's why don't we just have less cows? We just have less cows. We already know that eating meat and growing a beef industry in a country like Australia is disastrous. Across rangeland Africa, disastrous. The idea that we're going to feed the Indian population and the Chinese population beef is bonkers by any measure. But we're not having those conversations. Anyway. Okay. Where are we? Oh, we're covering most of that. Yeah. Uh, good possum talk. I'm hoping that we'll be doing a bit of possum talk and bat talk. We've got some very active groups in Australia, Victoria particularly, about uh, that. Here, the aquatic insects are depleted, so the fish, birds, and frogs, etc., starve out. Yeah, precisely. Where are you? One Living World. Are you in the US? Or are you in Canada? Or are you from Europe? I mean, insects in Europe is just catastrophic. Um, and then you've got all the other issues that are um, here. Suburban sprawl is a massive issue because everyone's a NIMBY. You know? Nobody wants medium and high density development anyway. Yeah, I remember when chitin was supposed to replace plastics, but where does the chitin come from? Yeah, we're gonna destroy the mollusk populations all over the world. Yeah. But I think Slighton. I remember reading something that we were going to be able to farm slaters because slaters had chitin in their um, exoskeleton. I think I read that ridiculous here something. Alex, I'd be happy to hear about Australian environmentalism going forward. It's We've got a very strong environmental movement in Australia, but it's not very cohesive. And the problem is that I think a lot of the support, the electoral support that the bodies give to particular politicians is, well, let's just say it's very generous. And I don't think it's hypercritical when they endorse people because we've got a lot of the people that are supposedly independent and climate kind of, or climate activists as against environmental activists. They're still funded by big money, and our system is not quite as opaque as yours, but it's very opaque. So it's hard to tell who's serving who. One Living World, Northeast US. Well, we're getting a good lot of people from that pocket of the states. Sandy again. One Living World has been to my home and visited. He's a lovely person. Well, there we go. I'm pleased that you found your way into here, and I appreciate you guys from the. Tell me the name of the group again. Climate Crisis Chat, or that you've found your way in, because I haven't been able to be like a meaningful participant. I mean, um, I watch so much material trying to prepare for all these things, and I'm always seeing interviews, and I run other channels for other people. Uh, so yeah, I find it really difficult. I can be watching stuff, and I can be doing, preparing stuff, but I find it very difficult to be actively involved in chat, especially on the Hell site. I find the Hell site very difficult to tolerate. I can't stand it every time I check it that I've got an ad I don't care about being forced in front of me. And yeah, I mean, we all know what's wrong with the health site. It's still good because it's a bit. I've got a good following there, but I want people to gradually move over to something that doesn't feed you shit in the algorithm. Um, too, if you're watching this later and you are a Facebook user and have found me through Facebook, I'm giving Facebook completely away. I I purchase uh, royalty free and web safe music and whatnot, and I play it on the streams, and then I get these uh, strikes on Facebook. Facebook's just shit. So Facebook's I'm done. Uh, Alex, he would fit. Hang on. But he doesn't use Twitter. Um, I mean, on the Climate Crisis Club, I don't think he uses Twitter to be in a space on Saturday morning. Um, I, if you're talking about me, um, that yeah, it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning for me. Twitter's not somewhere I really want to be. I do try and see. I see the messages scroll through, and I try and get through the links. But there's so much stuff in there that I think my I- I'm I'm glad that I got added to the group, and I'll try and get to know you all a bit more, and I'll check out all your other socials, and if you've got YouTube and all that, I'll check those out. But I'm not very good at participating in forums. It's one of the reasons why I've started up the Discord um, so that there's threads there and discussions, subject discussions that can be more useful. So I won't plug the Discord today, but I did do a bit of maintenance on it yesterday, and I think in a couple of weeks it'll be a really useful space if people want to join. Actually, if you do want to go and join the Bird Emergency one, you can jump into. My links are really easy: thebirdemergency.com/discord. So I think we've only got like 4 or 5 people in there now, but I expect after the weekend we'll get quite a few more in. I haven't added the photography. Um, One of the really popular things in the Bird Emergency was when I was doing Photography Friday, and I want to rebirth that. Uh, so yeah, there's photography stuff will be in there. Anyway, that's we can talk about that at a different time. Alex, blue sky, climate crisis club. I don't know. Are we talking about someone, Alan? So Alan. So I'm guessing is Alan One Living World, just so that I know, because I like to know what's going on in my chat. Uh, there we are. Yes, that must be you, Alan. No, okay. Uh, Environmental Coffee House. We still have a Facebook page and a group, and our page has over 20,000 followers. And guess what? All of the population of articles that the editor Jonathan does, nobody goes. I don't know what we're at. Okay, you've got a Discord. But I don't have the ability to manage all this shit myself. Um, Look, it's hard, but I'm trying to get things started, and then I want to bring people in as mods. So I know there'll be a couple of people coming in as mods in the Discord. Um, I, I, I use Facebook now to just keep track of a couple of groups. Otherwise, for me, it has no value. The interactions I get on it are generally time wasty, and I don't have time for it. I don't have time for people who begin conversations that are very general and sound like they're actually into birds or they're into conservation, but really they're trying to sell you a service or get you to subscribe to something else. So I'm pretty good at picking them. But Facebook is just a place that attracts waste for for me. Um, I so yeah, I'd rather spend my time researching and finding people with really interesting things to say, and then I mean, my platforms are tiny, but I'm hoping that this one will grow. I was going to discontinue my Twitter because I was so angry with the Nazi crap, the the crypto crap, the sports betting crap that was cluttering up my feed. But I think Elon must have noticed that people were just bailing out and reporting all that shit. And it's less intrusive at the moment, so I can tolerate it. And my following on Twitter, is like, well, it's 10 times what it is on Blue Sky. But the Blue Sky interactivity is much better. Threads is a waste. I really wanted to use Instagram, but Instagram doesn't want to play nice with doing multi-streaming and all that kind of stuff, which means you have to, if you're producing content rather than consuming content, if you're producing content, you really have to pick a lane. And Instagram is more, from my experience, more people trying to convince me to get involved in their things rather than being activists. It's more selling products, selling ideas that are not action driven. I've got myself off topic, haven't I? Yeah. So, um, oh, one thing I'll just give you I'll show you a couple of the things that I'll be doing on this channel. Now, I've prepared this one for when we do an Australian politics uh, sort of and things like that. But and also give away plants when they're ready to disperse. Um, all kinds of things. Oh, look, I like how the chat just sort of refreshed itself there when I went onto there. That was good. Um, let me know in the chat if you do uh, go off to that to the polls. Um, I'm guessing a bunch of people have headed off because I've gone off topic. Um, yeah, so these regular shows sort of it's going to be roughly the same time, and then when I'm doing interviews, the interviews will be whenever people are available. Uh, my I don't know if you've ever heard of Rappler, a magazine in the Philippines, political magazine. The author and proprietor, the editor proprietor of that publication, uh, has suffered all sorts of economic and political persecution in the Philippines because the Philippines is almost as corrupt as well, probably more corrupt than the US, and Australia and everywhere else. I mean, we've all got political corruption. She's a very brave and I think a significant uh, journalist. So reaching out to her, um, yeah, there'll be a lot of people that I hope will agree to talk to me on this platform. Good on you, Sandy. Yeah, you can stay. You don't have to keep chatting. Um, I'll be pulling the pin soon anyway because the idea of these morning shows for me is to get into it. Uh, if I've got the energy, I'll do shows at different times of the day and night. So make sure you're subscribed. Have to tell you that. Subscribe, ring the bell, uh, but because not all of the streams for this um, will be pre-planned. And of course, if you use Twitch, make sure you become a follower on Twitch. Um, one of the reasons I'm doing every day is because I really want to build up Twitch because uh, Twitch is a totally different audience as well, and I mean we have to break out into different audiences if we're going to have any hope of changing their trajectory. Um, I was going to talk about elections. We had an election in Australia on the weekend in Western Australia. Now, Western Australia is dominated by mining industry and pastoral concerns too. And uh, at the previous state election, the Labor Party, which is our centre left party, annihilated the Liberal and National or coalition, Conservative coalition. And at the election on the weekend, the Conservatives pulled back about 10% overall. Went from 3 or 4 seats to having 9 or 11. I have to look at the. So people are still supporting Labor, uh, but the Liberals did increase their vote. But significantly, the Greens and Independents had a pretty significant increase in their vote too, but not enough to win seats. I think there was one sort of left-leaning independent that won a seat. But New Zealand went conservative, and nearly all of their environmental protections have been wound back. The limits on development and shoddy development have been wound back. So I'll be trying very hard to get someone with some expertise in New Zealand environmental politics and politics in general, and even polling onto the show. I'm approaching a pollster in Australia to understand the societal trends that are happening in Australia, and I want to do this for many of the Commonwealth countries. I want to I want to look at a country like India that has so many things in common with Australia. Colonial background, the basic system of government, but a much, much greater population, um, a much bigger proportion of their population had been oppressed in a way that our Indigenous people were, but indeed the British Raj was a lesson in subjugating a large part of the population, while letting people think that they were, because we've got trains, we're doing well. There's a very active bird watching, bird photography, and conservation movement in India, but I'm not sure that biodiversity is getting well championed there. It's like everywhere. So everything's framed in what is the economic gain for being positive in retaining biodiversity. Here the nature positive. The government's policies were nature positive, but as soon as it got difficult with the mining industry, they ditched it. They ditched it all. So, yeah, very, very, very depressing. Very, very, very depressing. Um, Folks, if there's something you would like me, if there's a topic or someone you would like me to speak to, I'll get Lyle on this format. And uh, I didn't know much about Lyle before I interviewed him last week. Was it last week or the week before? I know a lot more, so I think we can have a more valuable conversation um, for the next time. But I would really like suggestions, because although you don't want to be captured by your audience, you do want to do things that your audience will be interested in. And when you've got a very small audience and you want to be interactive, it's a very good idea to talk to people that the audience might be interested to hear from. And particularly people who don't get uh, much exposure. Um, there is a professor here called Terry Hughes, and he's probably the expert on the Great Barrier Reef. Um, very active on Twitter. I want to get Terry on the show to talk about the reef systems in Australia. Yeah, and we'll talk to a lot of the conservation and activist bodies if we can. Organised conservation groups, land restoration groups, re-veg kind of groups. Because one of the things I'm really torn about in is sometimes I wonder whether we're doing revegetation and land rehabilitation in a way which is actually biodiversity positive, because often these projects are devised and grant applications won based on some economic impact, some positive impact on community or uh, other activities like agricultural activities or tourism activities. And I'm not sure that's always the best framing for pursuing activities that are largely government funded or indeed charity funded. And let's be honest, if it's charity funded, it's really government funded because the charities get their money by having the tax breaks available to people who donate, and also available to the earnings on the investments of those charities. So it's really government funded as well, in a practical sense, if not a direct sense. Yeah. Okay. Well, you've all gone quiet, so that's usually a very good indicator for me that uh, if you've all run out of steam, it probably means I've run out of steam. Tomorrow I'll be back at about the same time. I'll try and start a little bit early. I had to go out and do some shopping early this morning, and then get the lorikeet back in the cage. It's a hot day here, and the dog needs to be inside because it's too hot outside for the old dog. So, dog and lorikeet, when they're both uh, in close proximity, could be doomed for the lorikeet. Appreciate you all chatting, keeping the conversation flowing. Tomorrow, I think I might look at how. Actually, I will. Tomorrow, what I will do is I'll reference two popular outlets on YouTube in Australia that are badged as alternative media, and I'll just play the different approaches. I'm a big fan of both of them, but I totally understand what one of them is saying about the other one. And I just want to talk about that conflict about sometimes you have to modify your message to get into the mainstream and try and massage them. But then I wonder, once you get into that position, whether it's impossible to back out. So that I'll play you some fun clips, and we'll talk about those. So I've downloaded them, so that will be great. Alex, thank you. Appreciate that you jumped in and got chatting early. Um, uh, since you said it's okay to be popping those links and stuff into the Twitter chat, I will do that again. Otherwise, what I do ask is that you are subscribed to the channel. Click the notifications so that you do get them, and follow me on Blue Sky, and I better say Twitter as well. So the easy link to find me on Twitter, thebirdemergency.com/Twitter. I'll never change it to X. That will take you there. Or if you're a Blue Sky user, thebirdemergency.com/Blue Sky. And of course, the Discord, thebirdemergency.com/Discord. There's also a server for Not Just Another Podcast, but I think that they're going to end up. I probably should just have Not Just Another Podcast as a channel in the other server. I don't know. Anyway, they're both there. Great. So, thanks, Alex. That's what the Twitter chat is for. Great. And also, make sure you subscribe to the Bird Emergency, thebirdemergency.com/YouTube, or thebirdemergency.com/Twitch, if Twitch is your jam, because there is a fair bit coming up on the Bird Emergency too. But it's not usually at a consistent time. So, yeah. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed chatting. I have too. I'll just keep working on putting more interesting things into the presentation, and over the coming weeks, we should see we should, now that I'm more familiar with this particular platform that I'm using to do the streaming, and it's not throwing my computer into fits, we can keep it going, keep developing. If later on you think of something that you want me to cover or talk about, just pop it in the comments or DM me on either Twitter or Blue Sky, and I'll take it up from there. Been a pleasure. Enjoy your evening on the other side of the world. I'm off to enjoy another hot day where we've got a flood emergency in southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales. Still bushfires, Western Australia. Minor bushfires cropping up in my state, in Victoria, but heatwave conditions. So we've got warnings for heat waves for people, and of course for the creatures out there. So if you're catching this in Australia later on, make sure you've got a bird bath out. Make sure you've got somewhere shady for animals to get out of the sun, and just make sure there's some water in a safe spot for them to survive these hot days. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. I'm a plant nerd, and I'm a grumpy old bastard. It's been not just another podcast. I hope I'll see you again soon. Bye.